You are talking to yourself right now, not out loud. Maybe not even in words, but there is a voice in your head that never stops. It comments on everything you do. It replays conversations from 3 years ago. It rehearses arguments with people who are not in the room. It narrates your life as you live it. And for most of human history, nobody knew what to make of it. Some cultures thought it was the voice of gods, others thought it was madness. Today, neuroscience has a different answer. That voice is not a sign of weakness. It is one of the most powerful cognitive tools your brain has ever developed, and understanding it might change the way you think about thinking. Let's start with the basics. Talking to yourself is called inner speech, and it is not the same as thinking. Thinking is broad and often imagistic, a mix of feelings, sensations, images, and fragments. Inner speech is different. It has a voice, a rhythm, a direction. It is language turned inward, and it does something that pure thought cannot. It organizes. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky, one of the first scientists to seriously study inner speech in the 1930s, argued that language does not just communicate thought, it shapes thought. When you put something into words, even silently, you are not just describing what you already know, you are creating something new. You are building a structure around something formless and making it real enough to examine. This is why people who work through problems out loud so often find solutions they could not reach in silence. The act of verbalization forces the brain to commit to a direction, and commitment creates clarity, but inner speech is not just a problem-solving tool. It is also a time machine. The voice in your head lives in 3 time zones simultaneously. It visits the past to replay, analyze, and sometimes torture you with things that cannot be changed. It visits the future to plan, rehearse, and anticipate what might happen, and occasionally, it returns to the present to notice what is actually happening right now. This time-traveling capacity is something almost no other animal has. A dog experiences the world. A crow solves problems. A chimpanzee uses tools. But the sustained inner monologue that allows a human to sit quietly in a room and mentally rehearse a conversation that has not happened yet, in a place they have never been, with a person they have not seen in years, that is something else. That is the inner voice. Now here is where it gets fascinating. Researchers have discovered that not all inner speech is the same. Some inner speech is condensed. When you think to yourself, the thought often arrives already compressed, stripped of full sentences, more like a headline than a paragraph. Psychologists call this abbreviated inner speech. It is fast, efficient, and mostly private. You understand what you mean even when the thought is incomplete, because you already have all the context. But other inner speech is expanded, full sentences, a clear speaker, a deliberate direction. And this expanded inner speech is particularly powerful in moments of stress, decision-making, and self-control. Here is one of the most surprising discoveries in recent psychology. The language you use in your inner voice changes how effective it is. Specifically, whether you refer to yourself as I or by your own name. When people face a stressful situation and talk to themselves using their own name, treating themselves like a third person, they perform significantly better. They feel less anxious. They make clearer decisions. They recover from setbacks faster. Psychologist Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan has spent years studying this phenomenon, which he calls self-distancing. When you say to yourself, I am terrified, you are fully inside the emotion. When you say, why is your name feeling this way? You create just enough distance to observe the emotion rather than be consumed by it. The inner voice becomes a coach rather than a critic. And that shift, from first person to third person, from I to your own name, can happen in a single sentence and change the entire quality of your experience. But the inner voice is not always on your side. For many people, the inner critic is the loudest part of the monologue, the voice that catalogs failures, that predicts rejection before it happens, that replays the worst version of every memory. This is not a malfunction. It is the same hypervigilance that kept your ancestors alive on the savannah, the brain that anticipated. The worst outcomes survived, the brain that was relentlessly self-critical fixed mistakes before they became fatal. But in the modern world, this ancient alarm system has no leopards to warn you about, so it warns you about everything else. Instead, the email you sent that might have sounded wrong, the joke that did not land, the look on someone's face that might have meant something. Your inner critic is not your enemy. It, too, is an ancient survival system running on modern problems, and, like all ancient systems, it can be updated, not silenced, not eliminated, but redirected. Research on inner speech points to something simple and counterintuitive. The goal is not to quiet the voice. The goal is to change what the voice says. And that begins with noticing it. Most people live their entire lives inside their inner monologue, without ever becoming aware of it as a separate thing. They experience the voice as reality rather than as commentary. The moment you notice the voice, name it. Step back from it even slightly. Something shifts. The commentary becomes visible, and what is visible can be examined. What is examined can be questioned. And what is questioned can be changed. Your inner voice is one of the most remarkable things about you. It is the running narrative of your life, the editor of your memories, the rehearsal studio for your future, and the most private place you will ever inhabit. Nobody has ever heard it exactly as you hear it. Nobody ever will. And somewhere in that extraordinary private theater, the most important conversations you will ever have are happening right now, not with someone else, with yourself. There is one more thing worth understanding about the inner voice. It is not always verbal. For some people, inner speech is rich with words and full sentences. For others, it is more visual, more emotional, more like a feeling with a direction than a voice with words. Psychologist Russell Hurlburt at the University of Nevada has spent decades studying what he calls inner experience, using a method called descriptive experience sampling. He gives people a device that beeps at random moments during the day. When it beeps, they stop and write down exactly what was happening in their mind at that precise moment. What he found surprised even him. People are dramatically different in how they experience their inner life. Some people have almost constant inner speech, others have almost none. Some think primarily in images, others in emotions. Some experience a kind of unsymbolized thinking, a clear sense of knowing something without any words or images attached. This means that the question of why you talk to yourself may have a completely different answer depending on who you are. For some, the inner voice is a constant companion, a narrator who never goes quiet. For others, it is a tool that appears when needed and retreats when not. Neither is better. Both are human. What matters is not the volume of your inner voice, it is the quality of the conversation you are having with it. Because that conversation, the one happening right now in the private theater of your mind, is shaping everything: your memories, your decisions, your fears, your confidence, your sense of who you are. The inner voice does not just describe your life,